Welcome to another episode of the Metal Matt Podcast. And today we will be talking about a certain band that is quite polarizing, to say the least. Their name is Nickelback, and we will be talking about them in just a few moments. But first, it is time for the shout-outs. And the shout-out, we gotta give a shout-out to Chucky's Playground. I mean, the best site on the internet. Yesterday, at the time of recording this, we opened up the Chucky's Playground standalone website at www.chuckysplayground.com. And we've gotten a lot of positive responses to it so far, and we will definitely be working on it as time goes on. And the doctor has been involved in just the site overall, and definitely thanks to him, because the site is really cool, and it's only going to get better from here on out. In the forum, we've been having all kinds of talks about the about the series at the forums, and it's just a really great place to be. So come on and sign up, because I guarantee you are going to love it here. And I'll also give another shout out to my good friends Spanky and G and their podcast, Movie Mayhem. Just a great podcast. You know, they've done episodes on movies like Jack Frost, The Big Lebowski, Rise of the Guardians, About Schmidt, things like that. And just a really great podcast. The two have great chemistry. You know, they know what they're talking about. They're just amazing people in general. They're awesome people in general. So definitely check the podcast out, because they're just awesome people. So now it is time to shoot the shuffle. At number 1, The Night Santa Went Crazy by Weird Al Yankovic from Bad Hair Day. Really dark Christmas song. And this is definitely going on my Christmas music playlist when it comes to the Christmas season, because it's just amazingly dark and amazingly funny. Number 2, Abracadabra by Steve Miller Band from Abracadabra. Pretty cool 80s song from this classic rock band. Number 3, Space Bear by Ace Frehley from Anomaly. Space Bear is a really cool instrumental by Ace Frehley from his 2009 album. I do kind of wish he did more instrumentals on that album, but this one's pretty cool. Number 4, God Eat God by Marilyn Manson from Hollywood. Really good introduction to that album, and it's probably one of my favorite Manson albums. Number 6, All the Promises by Queensryche from Operation Mindcrime 2. While Operation Mindcrime 2 isn't as strong as its predecessor, it's still pretty cool, and this one is a great closing song. Number 7, Blondes and Black Cars by Autograph from That's the Stuff. Pretty cool glam metal song. Number 8, Confessions Part 3 by Weird Al Yankovic from Straight Outta Lindenwood. This is a parody of Usher's Confessions Part 2, and it's pretty funny. And it definitely takes it really takes it a step above that, and it's really funny. Number 9, Goodbye Blue Sky by Pink Floyd from The Wall. And the funny thing about it is that I was actually listening to The Wall last night, and I was also watching some clips from the movie, which is very weird, but at the same time, pretty mesmerizing. It's pretty cool. And this song is a really calm song. And finally, number 10, Falling Apart by Zebrahead from MFZB. And this one is a pretty decent song, though I do like Alone just a little bit better. So that's all for Shoot the Shuffle. And now it's time to talk about the main event. It's time to talk about a band that has just been, well, a bit controversial and a bit polarizing. And that band is Nickelback. Nickelback is without a doubt the most polarizing band in modern times. while there are a few dedicated fans out there, for the most part, the general consensus is these guys suck. And I'd be lying if I said I couldn't see that view. But at the same time, there's also something pretty cool about them. And part of me does wonder if that they get a bad rap. Part of me wonders if they really deserve all the criticism that they've gotten. Have they? Well, that's what I'm going to be figuring out today. I'm going to be figuring out if these guys really do deserve to be the most hated band in the world, or if they're just simply overlooked and misunderstood. So let's get things started. So the first album we're going to be talking about is Curb. And this was their very first one that came out in 1996. And it's pretty different from the current Nickelback. It was recorded in 1996, and you can really tell because it definitely has that 90s feel, and the sound of it really feels like what would happen if Pearl Jam had a baby with 90s era Metallica, and that's really what it would sound like. It's very Pearl Jam inspired, and every time I was listening to it, I just kept thinking of Pearl Jam, and it just has that sound, just has that kind of post grungy sound. Unfortunately, the album is just really forgettable. There's not a lot to the album, and I'm not going to really stay on this album very long because there's not a ton of things to talk about. At least with this album, it's just kind of forgettable, and it's just not very. I wouldn't say it's not very good. It's all right. I did kind of enjoy it while I was listening to it, but after it was all over with, I really could not remember what it was I was listening to, and it's just really forgettable. And A Little Friend on there it's pretty cool. Curb is probably the best song on that album. Kind of soft and then loud at the same time, but then again, those songs are okay. This album is really nothing special. If you're just really curious as to what Nickelback sounded like when they first started out, I'd say take a listen. But other than that, you're really not missing much. So then we move on to The State. And I think that this one was a huge improvement upon Curb. This one is probably the darkest album that they've done. And probably, I'd say their heaviest, maybe. This Curb, and even a little bit of Dark Horse. Well, not necessarily Dark Horse, but this and Curb are probably their heaviest albums. Really bordering on kind of hard rock / heavy metal in some ways. And it's pretty good, I think. I wouldn't say it's my favorite Nickelback album, but it is up there. Again, very different from the current Nickelback. It's a lot more heavier than they are now. And there's a few songs on there that are pretty cool. Cowboy Hat is pretty good. It kind of has this kind of Western thing going for it. Kind of twang going on to it. And it's pretty cool to listen to. And Leader of Men is probably my favorite song off that album. And it's probably my favorite Nickelback song, period. Just really, really good. And it's just, I just really love that album. I just really love that song. And the video is pretty cool as well. So, but anyway, long story short, The State is probably one of Nickelback's better albums. Definitely dark and heavy. So if you're really curious as to what Nickelback would sound like in a heavier state, kind of hard rock, and even border on heavy metal state, I'd say check it out, because you might be pleasantly surprised. And so now we move on to Silver Side Up. And this one is, I think, is the one that really kind of pushed them into the mainstream, really. Just something that, and it's probably my favorite Nickelback album. Like, I'm not sure, like, that in the state, is really, kind of competing with. I'd probably go with, Silver Side Up as my favorite one. Never Again is a really good song. How You Remind Me, meh, just, kind of a overplayed song, really, at least at the time. And I think that's what a lot of people really, I think what a lot of people really hate about Nickelback, especially that song, is the fact that it got played, like, all the time. So, I mean, it's not that great of a song to begin with, so, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that one. And Woke Up This Morning is pretty good. Too Bad, not necessarily one of their better ones. Just for Hollywood. Hollywood is okay. For the most part, this album is pretty good. It keeps going on that kind of grungier, kind of harder sound, but at the same time, especially with something like How You Remind Me, it's they kind of are trying to go for a more mainstream type sound. And really, How You Remind Me is really the only song on there that I pretty much dislike. But other than that, I think the album is pretty good. And so now we move on to The Long Road. And this one is okay. It's not the best Nickelback album in the world. It's a decent album at best. Not a lot of songs on there are very good or memorable. And Someday is pretty much How You Remind Me, basically. And I think that one person on YouTube actually did like a mashup of, they did like a side-by-side comparison of Someday and How You Remind Me, and the results were just staggering. Like, it was like the same song. Like, it's just pretty insane, But, yeah, and there's also a song on there called Throw Yourself Away. And from what I gather about the song, it sounds like a Prom Night Dumpster Baby song. And when I was listening to this album, to the song, all I could think of was Family Guy's Prom Night Dumpster Baby song. Like, that's really all I could think about. I'm just a prom night dumpster baby. I got no mom or dad. Like, that's all I could really think of. And after that song got in my head, I couldn't take that song seriously anymore. But, yeah, overall, Nickelback's The Long Road. It's not a very good album. Kind of forgettable. And it really does kind of go towards that mainstream sound that they're going to be doing. And so that's something I can never forgive this album for. But overall, it's a decent album. If you're a Nickelback fan, you'll like this album. If not, nah. And so now we move on to quite possibly their biggest album, All the Right Reasons. And, like, I remember when this album was huge, like when it was really popular. Like, I remember when I was in 5th grade, and, like, everybody I knew was listening to this album. Like, it was, like, that popular. And just really pretty insane, honestly. And I kind of like this album. I think it's a little bit better than The Long Road, but at the same time, meh. Like, the drumming on the first song, Follow You Home, is pretty good. And the second one, Fight for All the Wrong Reasons, that's okay. Photograph, I have to admit, is like a guilty pleasure song of mine. I'm sorry. I know that there's people who hate that song, but I cannot help it. I do have a soft spot for that song. But anyway, there's also a lot of ballads on there that are pretty stupid and just not very good. Like "Saving Me," "Far Away," "If Everyone Cared." Like those songs, I could do without. "Rockstar" is okay. They're kind of self-indulgent, and this album is just okay at best. And it really does begin that kind of mainstream, mainstream sound for Nickelback. So if you're a Nickelback fan, you might like this one. But for some people, it might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, for lack of a better term. And so now we move on to Dark Horse. And I just have to say, this album is not as strong as Katy Perry's Dark Horse. Like, I'd rather listen to Katy Perry's Dark Horse than this one. Because I'm coming at you like a dark horse. And there's no going back. But anyway. But yeah, Dark Horse is really weak. Like, it's pretty somewhat bad. And I think there's too many ballads on there. Like, there are a few good songs on there, like "Burn It to the Ground" is alright. And "This Afternoon" I do have a soft spot for, but other than that, not a lot of good songs on there. And the lyrics are just really terrible on here. And I think the album focuses a bit too much on sex. At least the lyrics do, anyway. And the lyrics really do sound like a 15-year-old boy who's going through puberty. You know, it really does sound like that. And it really is kind of the same song over and over again. And that's what a lot of people really do hate about Nickelback. The fact that they do write the same song over and over again. I mean, I can't deny that. So I can see that viewpoint. Dark Horse is just not very good album. And it kind of begins this downward spiral towards Dark Horse is just a bad album, period. And so now we move on to Here and Now. And I've got to be honest with you on here. Here and Now is the worst Nickelback album yet. I'm sorry, I just have to say that. Here and Now is just terrible. It is terrible. Like, I was listening to this album on my phone, and I was really trying to listen to it. I was really trying to pay attention to it. And I wasn't playing around on my laptop. I wasn't watching something on the TV. Like, I was really trying to listen to this album. But I kept zoning out. I kept staring off into space. I kept daydreaming of other things. And it's just, like, I could not pay attention to this album because it was so boring. Like, I just don't like the Here and Now album. It's just boring. There's way too many ballads on there. And the rockin' songs, if you could even call it that, are very bland, very boring. And the only good song, or at least the only song I liked on here, was Midnight Queen. And even then, it sounds like a Dark Horse reject. You know, it sounds like something that you would have heard on Dark Horse, but it wasn't good enough for Dark Horse. And when that is the best song on this album, you know this album is bad. Just Here and Now is just my least favorite Nickelback album. I just don't like it. So that's my rant. My rant's over. And now Nickelback is coming out with a new album this November called No Fixed Address. And they released one song called Edge of a Revolution. And after Here and Now, I was not looking forward to listening to this song. Because I'm like, you know what, I'm not sure if I even want to give Nickelback any more of my time. But Edge of a Revolution really surprised me. I think it's pretty good. It definitely is it's a far cry from what they usually do. It's a bit of a more political song, but even then it's kind of cliched. Like that Revolution song, like it's kind of cliched, but at the same time, it's probably the best Nickelback song in years. And it's a really hard pounding song. And I wish that Nickelback would do more heavy metal songs. I kind of wish that they would kind of go back to the state sound and kind of do another album like that. But yeah, so I really liked Edge of a Revolution. What are you waiting for? On the other hand, not so much. That song is friggin' terrible. It really does sound like a Here and Now reject. And those are the songs that I just hate from Nickelback. When Nickelback does really boring ballads, those are like the worst Nickelback songs. They have no soul to them, just nothing to them, and they just sound really boring, and What Are You Waiting For is one of those. So right now, as far as the new stuff goes, I really do have like mixed feelings for it. Edge of Revolution is great. What Are You Waiting For is terrible. So I'm really not sure exactly what the album is going to sound like. I'd like to think that'd be good, but considering Nickelback's latest material, I'm really not sure. Nevertheless, I'll probably get the album when it comes out. I'll listen to it when it comes out, and I'll probably let you know. And I'm at least interested in hearing the album, just so I can see if it sucks or not. But nevertheless, it'll be interesting to find out. So that's all for the Nickelback retrospective. In general, I wouldn't say that Nickelback really deserves to be the worst band of all time. Because, even if they do write really terrible albums like Dark Horse or Here and Now, some of their earlier stuff is still pretty good. And at the end of the day, I would much rather listen to Nickelback than anybody on the pop or rap charts. I'm not sure what that says about me, but, Nickelback, for the most part, is okay. They're nothing special. I wouldn't say that they deserve to be the worst band of all time, but I can definitely understand why they're called the worst band of all time. They're an okay band. So, next time on the Melmat Podcast, the next Melmat Podcast will take place in October. And for those of you who don't know, October is my favorite month of the year because it's Halloween season. And the Melmat Podcast will have a Halloween season as well. For the entire month of October, I will be discussing horror topics, supernatural topics, just anything relating to Halloween or just plain supernatural. And the first thing I'm going to do on October 1st, Wednesday, I will be discussing a band in the 70s that pretty much shocked the world. And they ended up doing a movie, a made-for-TV movie. I'm going to be talking about Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park. That ought to be pretty interesting. And I'll see you then.